So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto inherited the lost Geass of kings and made a contract with the immortal witch Naruto XCC. Code Geass. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Echo of Sovereignty. The perpetual twilight of Konoha hung heavy. A shroud woven from ancient, smog-choked factories that endlessly belched their metallic breath into the already burdened sky. Below, the city sprawled like a forgotten leviathan, its modern steel and glass veins barely concealing the crumbling, magically scarred ruins that formed its true foundation. It was a place where history whispered from the shadows, a stark counterpoint to the relentless, if grimy, march of progress. The air itself tasted of rust and forgotten dreams, a constant, acrid reminder of Konoha's dual nature. Naruto Uzumaki knew these shadows intimately. He moved through them like a ghost, a pariah in plain sight. Not because he lacked presence, far from it. His stride was fluid, a testament to countless hours spent honing his body in the forgotten alleys and treacherous rooftops of the city's underbelly. His eyes, a piercing cerulean, missed nothing, scanning the grimy facades, the wary faces, the almost imperceptible shifts in the urban currents. He was 17. Tall and lean, with a kinetic energy that seemed barely contained beneath his unassuming, patched-up clothes. The whispers followed him, not of reverence, but of disdain, of suspicion. Of that deep-seated fear reserved for the unknown. Demon brat, the hushed curses would hiss, relics of a past he couldn't recall, a burden he couldn't shed. But their words were just background noise now, a dull ache he'd long since learned to ignore. His confidence wasn't born of arrogance, but of an unyielding self-reliance forged in the fires of isolation. He had only himself to depend on, and he'd made himself dependable. His destination today was one of the city's forgotten arteries, a condemned sector beneath the oldest district, rumored to house remnants of pre-imperial Konoha. It was a place most sane individuals avoided, plagued by structural instability and unsettling magical residue. For Naruto, it was a challenge, a potential source of forgotten scrolls, or perhaps, if he was lucky, unmonitored training grounds. The deeper he descended, the more pronounced the shift in atmosphere. The clatter of the city above faded, replaced by the rhythmic drip of water, the scuttling of unseen creatures, and a faint, almost imperceptible hum that vibrated through the very bedrock. The air grew cooler, damp, carrying the earthy scent of ancient stone and the metallic tang of something undefinable. He navigated the crumbling tunnels with practiced ease, his movements economic and silent. His enhanced senses, sharpened by years of street survival and relentless self-training, picked up every anomaly. A slight alteration in the airflow, a peculiar echo, a flicker of light from a crack no wider than a thread, these were his breadcrumbs in the darkness. He ducked under a collapsed support beam, his hand brushing against a wall that felt unnaturally smooth, almost polished, despite centuries of neglect. Curiosity, an ever-present companion, tugged at him. He traced the surface, finding faint, geometric patterns beneath layers of grime. Not natural rock, not conventional masonry. This was something else. He pressed harder, and a faint tremor ran through the stone. A low thrum, deep and resonant, began to pulse, growing stronger with each passing second. Naruto's eyes narrowed. This wasn't structural decay. This felt deliberate. He pulled back, his instincts screaming caution, yet a strange, irresistible pull drew him forward. He searched for a seam, a mechanism, anything that would explain the hum. His fingers found it, a hairline crack, almost invisible, running along one of the geometric lines. He pushed, subtly applying a focused burst of his latent chakra, a unique, vibrant energy he'd always possessed, far more potent than any academy jutsu. The crack widened with a soft groan, glowing with an ethereal, cerulean light that mirrored his own eyes. The hum intensified, becoming a low, rhythmic heartbeat that filled the cavern. Stone ground against stone, and a section of the wall, perfectly camouflaged, retracted inward, revealing a hidden chamber. The sight that greeted him stole his breath. It wasn't a dusty ruin. It was a vault, seemingly untouched by time. The air inside was still, pure, vibrant with a power that prickled his skin. Ornate carvings covered the walls, depicting figures draped in flowing robes, their eyes burning with an unsettling, singular intensity. At the center of the chamber, Suspended within a shimmering column of light that seemed to draw all ambient energy to itself, was a single, obsidian-like orb. It pulsed with a deep, violet glow, radiating an almost hypnotic power. Naruto felt an inexplicable connection to it, a strange sense of recognition, as if he were looking at a piece of himself. The hum was deafening now, vibrating in his bones, threatening to shatter his eardrums. He took a hesitant step forward, then another. The light around the orb intensified, blossoming into a blinding supernova of violet and cerulean. A voice, ancient and resonant, yet devoid of language, screamed in his mind. It was a command, a plea, a fragment of raw, unfiltered will, surging into his consciousness like a tidal wave. He stumbled back, clutching his head, a searing pain erupting behind his left eye. The world spun. Images flashed through his mind. Countless eyes, blazing with that singular intensity, commanding legions, reshaping landscapes. Whispering secrets of dominion, power, absolute and terrifying, washed over him, threatening to consume his very being. He felt his own chakra flare wildly, uncontrollably, trying to merge with this new, overwhelming force. He gasped, falling to one knee, sweat beading on his brow. The pain was unbearable, exquisite. Then, just as he thought his mind would shatter, it changed. The agony subsided, replaced by an unnerving clarity. The world snapped into sharp focus. He saw the intricate energy pathways in the chamber walls, the subatomic vibrations of the very air. The minute fluctuations in the ancient stone. He could almost taste the power radiating from the orb. It was the Geass of Kings, a name he didn't know, yet intrinsically understood. It wasn't just power. It was the ability to bend reality to one's will, to impose one's sovereign command upon the very fabric of existence. His left eye burned, a deep, fiery red now, with a complex, swirling sigil etched within the iris. He stood, slowly, testing the sensation. The power was immense, raw, but no longer chaotic. It felt tethered to him. A faint, almost imperceptible shift in the ambient energy of the chamber caught his attention. He turned, his new, terrifyingly perceptive eye locking onto a distortion in the air. A ripple, then a shimmer, and a figure materialized out of nothingness. She was ethereal, impossibly so. Long, pale green hair cascaded around her, framing a face of exquisite, almost porcelain beauty. Her eyes, a striking amber, held a profound weariness, an ancient sadness that seemed to stretch across eons. She wore a simple, white straitjacket-like garment, yet carried herself with an air of regal indifference. This was CC, the immortal witch, though Naruto, in his newfound clarity, simply knew her title, her nature. She smelled faintly of pizza and something indefinably old, like dust and forgotten libraries. She surveyed the chamber, her gaze lingering on the now inert obsidian orb. Then shifted to Naruto, her amber eyes widening almost imperceptibly as they locked onto his burning red left eye. A hint of surprise flickered in their depths, quickly replaced by a familiar, cynical amusement. Well, her voice was a silken murmur, resonant with centuries of observation. It seems my nap was interrupted for a rather unconventional awakening. The Geass of Kings, and a vessel so unlikely. She tilted her head, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. You reek of defiance, boy, and raw, untapped potential. Naruto said nothing, his mind still reeling from the influx of power. The searing knowledge. He stared back, his new eye seeing beyond her calm demeanor, sensing the immense, ancient power humming beneath her skin, the weariness that permeated her very essence. He saw the countless memories, the weight of an unending existence. He saw her desire, an end. What are you? Naruto managed, his voice rough, unaccustomed to the sheer force now coursing through him. He felt an urge, a primitive, primal instinct, to command her, to bend her to his will. But another, deeper part of him, the part that had always valued connection over control, resisted. CC chuckled, a low, melodic sound. I am CC, the immortal witch, and you, boy, have just stumbled into a destiny far grander, and far more terrible, than you could ever imagine. She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. The Geass of Kings is not a toy. It is a burden, a curse, and it demands a price. Always, a price. Naruto echoed, the word chilling him. He felt the immense power within him. A torrent held back by a fragile dam. What price could such power demand? Immortality, CC stated, her voice devoid of emotion, yet heavy with unspoken experience. Or perhaps, an eternal solitude. Many have wielded a Geass. Few have truly mastered it. And none have touched the Geass of kings and remained ordinary. She extended a pale hand, her fingers slender and elegant. I made a contract with one such individual, eons ago. And now, fate, or perhaps the whims of the universe, has brought us together. I sense the raw potential in you, the unyielding will. But you lack control. You lack understanding. She paused, her gaze piercing. I can give you that. I can guide you, show you how to wield this power, how to shape it, rather than be consumed by it. In return, you will grant me my dearest wish. Naruto felt a profound sense of foreboding, yet also an overwhelming sense of opportunity. This woman, this witch, held the keys to understanding this terrifying power. To perhaps even mastering it. He felt the itch of a new command forming in his mind, the urge to simply take the knowledge. But he resisted. Her eyes held an ancient sadness, a weariness that resonated with the isolation he himself had known. He instinctively understood her deepest desire, a desire for release from her endless existence. And what is your wish? He asked, his voice steady, betraying none of the internal turmoil. His Geass, the burning sigil in his eye, pulsed, confirming his intuition. Her true desire, an end to my immortality, she stated simply, her yes, holding a flicker of something akin to desperate hope. When you are strong enough, when you have mastered the Geass of kings to its absolute pinnacle, you will fulfill my wish. You will grant me death. The words hung in the stale air. A morbid vow. Naruto looked at her, truly looked at her. He saw not a malicious figure, but a soul burdened beyond measure, desperately seeking release. He felt an unprecedented surge of empathy, a recognition of profound loneliness. This was a different kind of contract, not one of mere power exchange, but of shared destiny. A contract, Naruto murmured, the concept feeling less like a burden and more like a challenge he was uniquely suited to face. His decision was instinctive, immediate, fueled by a nascent confidence that now bordered on certainty. I accept. As the words left his lips, a jolt of raw energy surged between them, a silent pact forged in the heart of the ancient chamber. The sigil in his left eye flared, casting deep red shadows across CC's pale face. A faint, almost imperceptible symbol, similar to the one in his eye, shimmered on her hand for a fleeting moment before fading. The hum of the chamber deepened, then began to recede, as if the very space acknowledged their new bond. Suddenly, a distant tremor shook the ruins. Not natural, not the crumbling of old stone. This was the thud of heavy boots, the faint, discipline hum of advanced Konoha chakra technology. Intruder detected. High energy signature. A voice echoed, distorted by the winding tunnels, but growing louder. CC's eyes narrowed, the cynical amusement returning. It seems your unconventional awakening didn't go unnoticed. Konoha's Anbu, efficient, if predictable. Naruto's mind, now sharpened by the Geass, processed the information instantly. Anbu, Konoha's elite, they're shadowy enforcers. They wouldn't send a full squad for a simple energy fluctuation. They sensed something significant, something dangerous. And they wouldn't stop until they found it. He felt the raw power within him, the burgeoning ability to command, to impose his will. This was his first test. Can you make us disappear? Naruto asked, his voice low, a new authoritative tone weaving through it. CC raised an eyebrow, a hint of genuine interest in her amber eyes. With the right application of Geass, perhaps. But such a direct spatial manipulation is beyond your current understanding. However, she glanced at the collapsing wall of the chamber, then at a series of complex pressure plates embedded in the floor, invisible to the untrained eye. There are other ways to disappear. More persuasive ways. Show me, Naruto commanded, not with the raw, untamed force of his new Geass, but with the quiet authority of a burgeoning leader. He trusted her, a dangerous, exhilarating leap of faith. CC smiled, a genuine, if small, smile that sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. Indeed, little king. The Anbu closed in. Their footsteps echoed, their chakra signatures growing stronger. more defined in Naruto's new perception. He could almost taste their determination, their rigid discipline. A squad of 8, moving with military precision, their leader a blur of concentrated energy. Fan out. The leader's voice cut through the damp air. Energy signature localized to sector GAMMA7. Proceed with extreme caution. Orders are to secure the anomaly, by any means necessary. Naruto watched them approach, his Geass eye burning. He felt a peculiar calm settle over him. He was no longer the outcast, the demon brat. He was something new, something powerful. He was a sovereign, and the world was about to learn it. CC directed him with a few cryptic words, her gaze flicking between the approaching Anbu and the intricate pressure plates. Perception, boy, not just what you see, but what you make them see. What you make them feel. Naruto understood. His Geass wasn't just about direct command. It was about influencing perception, sowing doubt, creating an alternate reality. He focused, the energy in his eye flaring. He didn't command them to leave. He commanded them to misinterpret. The lead Anbu burst into the chamber, their enhanced vision cutting through the gloom. Clear. The leader barked, his eyes sweeping the empty space. No target, no energy signature. What the hell? His subordinates followed, their expressions ranging from confusion to frustration. To them, the chamber was empty. The shimmering orb was gone, the intricate carvings faded into mundane stone, the very air devoid of the hum that had drawn them there. Naruto and CC stood in plain sight, but to the Anbu, they were invisible, intangible. Naruto had used his Geass not to hide, but to make them believe there was nothing to find. A subtle, terrifying manipulation of their senses. False alarm. Another Anbu muttered, checking his readings. Must have been a phantom resonance from the old wards. Impossible. The leader snarled, his instincts screaming at him, yet his eyes saw only emptiness. My sensors picked up. This is wrong. He paced the chamber, his frustration a tangible thing. But there's nothing here. How? Naruto watched them, a strange sense of detachment washing over him. This was the power, the ability to reshape reality, even if only in the minds of others. It was exhilarating, terrifying. He could see their fear, their doubt, their internal struggle between what they saw and what they knew to be true. And he could amplify it. Now, the next step. CC's voice was a soft whisper in his ear, a melodic counterpoint to the ANBU's agitated murmurs. The escape. A subtle misdirection. She indicated a specific pattern on the pressure plates. Observe. Learn. The world is a chessboard, and your Geass, little king, is your queen. Naruto focused, his red eye burning. He didn't just look at the plates. He understood them, saw the underlying magical conduits, the ancient mechanisms. He subtly shifted his weight, pressing down on a series of plates with precise, almost unconscious movements, guided by CC's unseen instruction and his burgeoning intuition. A low rumble started, deeper than before. The Anbu looked up, startled. What was that? The floor beneath them shifted, not violently, but subtly, like a massive beast stretching. Sections of the chamber walls began to crack, dust raining down. The structural integrity is failing. One Anbu yelled, it's collapsing. Panic began to set in, overriding their discipline. Naruto hadn't commanded the collapse. He had merely activated a pre-existing, ancient safety mechanism, a calculated, controlled demolition designed to seal the chamber. His Geass had simply given him the insight to activate it and the ability to enhance the ANBU's perception of immediate danger. Evacuate. Now. The Anbu leader bellowed, his voice laced with genuine fear as massive chunks of ceiling began to fall, seemingly targeting their positions. In truth, the collapse was contained, directed, but to them, it was a sudden, catastrophic failure. They scrambled, prioritizing survival over their mission, their highly trained movements devolving into desperate flight. Naruto watched them go, a faint smile touching his lips. He hadn't fought them. He hadn't shed blood. He had simply outsmarted them, using his burgeoning power in a way they couldn't possibly comprehend. As the Anbu fled, the chamber sealed itself with a final, resonant thud, burying the entrance and severing the last direct link to Konoha. Silence descended, broken only by the soft, almost imperceptible hum of the ancient vault. Naruto turned to CC, his red eye still glowing, a question in its depths. Well done, she murmured, a rare note of approval in her voice. Unnatural. Most would have tried to incinerate them. But you chose finesse. That bodes well. She gestured towards a faint, shimmering portal that had materialized in the corner of the sealed chamber, a swirling vortex of deep violet light. This way. A pre-arranged exit, in case of unwelcome guests. Naruto felt a surge of adrenaline, not from fear, but from the sheer power of his new reality. He stepped towards the portal, his gaze lingering on CC. She was more than just a guide. She was his first confidant, his only connection to this terrifying, exhilarating new world he had stumbled into. He had made a contract with an immortal witch, a gamble for power and an end to an ancient burden. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, but for the first time in his life, Naruto felt a sense of purpose, a destiny that was undeniably his own. He stepped through the portal, the violet light engulfing him, leaving the perpetual twilight of Konoha behind, and stepping into the unknown. The Geass mark on his eye pulsed with an unsettling glow, a beacon of the king that was to come. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. The Whispering Sands and Silent Blades. The transition through the portal was disorienting, a brief, chaotic tumble through shimmering violet light, and then, with an abrupt whoosh, they emerged into a starkly different reality. The oppressive gloom of Konoha was replaced by a brutal, unfiltered brilliance. A vast, cerulean sky, impossibly clear, arched overhead, unmarred by industrial haze. Below, the world stretched into an endless canvas of ochre and burnt orange, the undulating dunes of the Suna Desert Confederacy shimmering under the relentless sun. The air, hot and dry, was a stark contrast to the damp, metallic breath of the sealed Konoha chamber, carrying the faint, distant scent of spices and something indefinably wild. Like sun-baked rock and ancient dust. Naruto blinked, his eyes adjusting, the fiery sigil in his left eye still burning with a faint afterglow. The heat was immediate, enveloping, prickling his skin. He felt the fine grit of sand beneath his worn boots, heard the almost imperceptible whisper of the wind as it sculpted the dunes. CC stood beside him, seemingly unfazed, her pale green hair a striking contrast against the vivid landscape. She looked like a misplaced ghost from a forgotten fairy tale in this harsh, vibrant land. Quite the change of scenery, wouldn't you say, little king? CC murmured, her voice carrying an undercurrent of dry amusement. She gazed out at the sprawling desert, a faint, almost wistful expression on her face. The Suna Confederacy, a land of resilient people, ancient traditions, and perpetually shifting allegiances. A perfect place to begin your education in statecraft. Naruto took a deep breath, inhaling the dry, clean air. Statecraft. I thought we were laying low. Lay low. CC scoffed, a delicate eyebrow arching. With the Geass of kings humming in your veins, laying low is a quaint notion, boy. Besides, the Konoha Empire will be searching thoroughly. It is always better to be an acknowledged, if enigmatic, force than a hunted shadow. Suna offers a precarious neutrality, a chessboard where various powers vie for influence. It is an excellent place to observe, to learn, and to begin to exert your will. Naruto felt the truth of her words resonate within him. The power in his eye thrummed, urging him to action, to shape, to influence. He looked towards the distant horizon, where the faint outline of towering, solar-powered spires shimmered like mirages. Where do we start? Observation. CC replied, already moving. Her steps surprisingly light over the uneven sand. We will approach the nearest city-state. Discretion. For now, your unique abilities will be quite disruptive, if used without a precise target. They traveled for what felt like hours, the sun beating down mercilessly. Naruto, accustomed to harsh conditions, found the heat taxing but bearable. CC, with her immortality, seemed immune to its effects. As they drew closer, the mirage-like spires resolved into massive, gleaming structures of white and gold, rising organically from the desert floor, blending ancient, almost organic architecture with advanced solar technology. Wind turbines, massive and elegant, spun lazily on the highest points, their rhythmic hum a counterpoint to the endless whisper of the wind. The city, Kazuhikari, Light of the Wind, was a bustling hub of commerce and diplomacy. Its outer walls, built from polished, light-reflecting stone, seemed to shimmer, deflecting the sun's fiercest rays. Guards, clad in light, sand-colored tunics and armed with sleek, multi-barreled rifles, patrolled the gates. The air inside the city was filled with the exotic aroma of spices, grilled meats, and something sweet, like dates and honey. Merchants haggled in a rapid, melodic tongue, their stalls overflowing with vibrant textiles, gleaming metalwork, and exotic fruits. Nomadic tribesmen, their faces swathed in protective scarves, mingled with city dwellers in flowing, breathable robes. Naruto and CC moved through the crowds, drawing few stares. CC's unusual attire was simply another curiosity in a city accustomed to diverse travelers. Naruto, with his unassuming appearance, blended in surprisingly well. His Geass, however, was already active, providing a constant stream of information, the subtle tension in a merchant's hand. The flicker of greed in a diplomat's eyes, the underlying currents of fear and ambition that permeated the city's populace. He felt the subtle hum of chakra from the guards, the faint, almost musical resonance of wind magic in the air, a power integrated into Suna's very infrastructure. They found a quiet inn, a cool, shaded space with thick adobe walls and a central courtyard. As they ate a simple meal of spiced flatbread and dried fruit, CC explained the political landscape. Suna is not a unified nation, but a confederacy of powerful city-states and nomadic tribes. Their strength lies in their wind magic, their trade routes, and their ability to remain neutral amidst the conflicts of larger empires. Currently, a crucial trade agreement is being debated. Konoha seeks to establish a preferential trade route through Suna, giving them direct access to the lucrative resources of the southern continents. Suna's elders are divided, some see the economic benefits, others, the political trap. And Konoha's influence here? Naruto asked, remembering the Anbu from the chamber. Subtle, but persistent, CC replied, taking a delicate bite of flatbread. They employ skilled negotiators, yes. But also, less savory methods. Bribes, threats, subtle assassinations of opposition leaders. Your arrival, however, may have shifted the balance. They will undoubtedly be here, observing, manipulating. Later that afternoon, they found themselves in the central bazaar, where an outdoor assembly was being held. A temporary stage had been erected, and the city's elders, venerable men and women in richly embroidered robes, sat on cushions. Standing before them was a figure who immediately caught Naruto's Geass-enhanced attention. She was tall, with a commanding presence that belied her youthful appearance. Her sharp, intelligent eyes, framed by dark lines, surveyed the crowd with an almost predatory gaze. Her long, blonde hair was pulled back in 4 distinct ponytails, giving her a distinctive, almost regal silhouette. She wore practical, light armor beneath her flowing robes, and a massive, ornate fan was strapped to her back, hinting at her mastery of wind magic. This was Temari, the Konoha envoy, as introduced by a Suna elder with a tone of cautious respect. Wait, Temari was the Suna ambassador. Konoha's envoy was a different, older, more overtly jovial man with sharp eyes. Temari stood beside him, observing, her expression unreadable, but a faint undercurrent of irritation detectable by Naruto's Geass. The Konoha envoy, a portly man named Koji, spoke with practiced eloquence, painting a rosy picture of prosperity and mutual benefit. His words were smooth, persuasive, but Naruto's Geass showed him the subtle tells, the slight tremor in Koji's hand when he mentioned specific clauses, the fleeting flicker of smugness in his eyes when he believed he had swayed an elder. Koji was a master manipulator, subtly weaving threats and promises, his RDS designed to trap Suna in a web of dependency. Naruto felt a surge of indignation. He wasn't privy to the full details, but his Geass showed him the intent behind Koji's words, an intent to exploit, to dominate. His hand instinctively twitched, the power in his eye itching to command Koji to reveal his true intentions, to humiliate him. Patience, little king, CC whispered, sensing his rising power. A direct command is a blunt instrument, and highly traceable. Influence is far more elegant and effective. Naruto took a deep breath, reining in the raw surge of power. He observed Temari. Her expression remained stoic, but Naruto's Geass allowed him to perceive a quiet fury simmering beneath her composed exterior. She was intelligent, proud, and clearly saw through Koji's facade, yet was bound by diplomatic protocol. He felt a connection, a shared understanding of the subtle deceptions at play. When Koji concluded, a a Suna elder rose, his voice hesitant. Envoy Koji, while your proposal is generous, some clauses regarding resource allocation are concerning. They seem to unduly favor Konoha. Koji's smile tightened, but his voice remained genial. My dear elder, these are merely standard operating procedures, necessary for ensuring the efficiency of such a vast undertaking. Rest assured, Konoha always has Suna's best interests at heart. The words were smooth, but the Geass in Naruto's eyes screamed, lie. Koji's mental landscape flickered with images of monopolized resources, of Suna's economy slowly being choked. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment, focusing. He didn't want to command Koji. He wanted to reveal him. To empower Suna, he projected a subtle suggestion, a whisper into the collective consciousness of the elders, look closer. Ask about the long-term projections. Demand transparency on the energy costs. It wasn't a direct command. It was a thought, a nagging doubt, carefully planted. One of the younger Suna elders, previously quiet, suddenly spoke up, his voice unexpectedly firm. Envoy Koji, could you elaborate on the projected energy consumption of the proposed transport system over the next 5 decades? And what contingency plans are in place for the inevitable depletion of certain regional resources that Konoha's proposal so generously offers to manage? Koji faltered, his genial facade cracking. This was a line of questioning he hadn't anticipated. It was too specific, too technical for the usual Suna debates. He stammered, attempting to deflect. Tamari, standing beside him, turned her head slightly, her sharp eyes flicking towards the crowd, searching. Naruto felt her gaze graze him, a fleeting moment of connection. He gave her the barest, almost imperceptible nod. She narrowed her eyes, as if weighing his subtle intervention. The Konoha proposal, Tamari interjected, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through Koji's bluster, does indeed contain several ambiguities. My own analysis suggests a disproportionate burden on Suna's emerging resource sectors in the long term. A revised proposal, with more equitable energy and resource sharing, would be more beneficial to both parties. Koji shot her a furious glance, Bu. Tamari met it with an unyielding stare. Her words were perfectly crafted, diplomatic yet firm, echoing the very doubts Naruto had subtly sown. She used her position, her intelligence, and now, his planted doubt, to expose the flaws without breaking protocol. The Suna elders began to murmur, their expressions shifting from polite interest to wary suspicion. The tide had turned. Koji, flustered, tried to regain control, but his words now rang hollow. Suddenly, a piercing shriek cut through the market clamor. A small, nondescript cart exploded in a flash of green fire, sending debris and screaming civilians scattering. Panic erupted. An attack, someone yelled. Konoha assassins. In the chaos, Naruto's Geass instantly identified 3 figures, cloaked and moving with unnatural speed, converging on the raised stage. Their chakra signatures were cold, precise, undeniable, Konoha Anbu. Not a full squad, but a surgical strike team, using the diversion to eliminate the descending elders, or perhaps, even Tamari, who had just defied her own envoy. They're targeting the stage, Naruto yelled, his voice cutting through the pandemonium, clear and authoritative. His Geass had already assessed the ANBU's trajectory, their intended targets, their weaknesses. CC had already moved, a blur of white, intercepting one of the assassins with a surprising burst of speed and a well-aimed kick. Had sent him tumbling into a fruit stall. She wasn't a fighter, but she was impossibly agile and aware. Tamari, without hesitation, ripped the massive fan from her back. With a single, powerful flick of her wrist, she unleashed a gust of wind so fierce it shredded the remnants of the exploding cart, sending the debris harmlessly away, and then slammed into another approaching Anbu, flattening him against a wall. Her movements were fluid, powerful, a master of aerial combat. Naruto moved. His body, already honed to peak physical condition, responded with an almost supernatural precision. His Geass burned, showing him every micro-movement of the remaining Anbu, every weakness in their stance, every predictable feint. He didn't need to command them. He needed to outmaneuver them. He intercepted the third Anbu mid-leap, twisting his body in an impossible arc, his elbow connecting with the assassin's jaw with sickening force. The Anbu staggered, his masked face snapping back. Before he could recover, Naruto, Moving like a phantom, delivered a rapid succession of blows, each one precise, targeting pressure points and nerve clusters, the Geass guiding his every strike. It wasn't brute strength, it was an artful, almost graceful dance of controlled chaos. The Anbu crumpled, unconscious, before he even hit the ground. The first Anbu, the one CC had kicked, recovered and lunged at Naruto. A poisoned kunai glinting in his hand. Naruto met him head-on. As the kunai plunged towards his chest, his Geass flared. He didn't move, he simply willed the assassin's hand to waver, just for a fraction of a second. The kunai scraped harmlessly against his ribs instead of piercing his heart. In that infinitesimal moment, Naruto twisted, sweeping the Anbu's legs out from under him, then pinned him to the ground with a knee to the chest, disarming him with a swift, brutal movement. Temari, having dealt with her assailant, turned, her fan held defensively, her eyes wide with a mixture of CK and reluctant admiration as she watched Naruto effortlessly neutralize the highly trained Anbu. Her gaze lingered on his burning red eye, a flicker of understanding dawning in her expression. The Arcade Square was a mess of overturned stalls and scattered goods, but the immediate threat was neutralized. Suna guards, finally reacting, swarmed the area, securing the unconscious Anbu. The elders, though shaken, were unharmed. Naruto stood over the disarmed Anbu, his breathing calm, his expression unreadable. He had felt the power, the exhilaration of its precise application. He hadn't just fought, he had controlled the fight, manipulated it, ensuring a swift, decisive end. Temari approached him, her fan now folded and resting against her shoulder, her gaze intense. Her expression was a complex blend of curiosity, suspicion, and a grudging respect. "Who? What are you?" Her voice was sharp, direct, cutting through the lingering tension. "You move like no shinobi I've ever seen. And your eyes." Naruto met her gaze, his Geass eye still faintly glowing. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he inclined his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement of her prowess. "You handled yourself admirably, Ambassador Temari. Your quick thinking saved lives." A faint flush touched her cheeks at the unexpected compliment. That was the least of it. "You disarmed a Konoha Anbu, a highly trained assassin, as if he were a child. And what was that you did in the assembly? It was like, you put thoughts into their heads." "Call it unconventional persuasion," Naruto replied, a hint of a smile touching his lips. He knew she was too intelligent, too perceptive, to be easily fooled. And he respected that. "I simply highlighted what was already apparent to anyone who bothered to truly look." Ambus. Sador Koji's proposal was clearly predatory. "You merely voiced what many were already thinking." Temari narrowed her eyes, studying him. "You are not from Konoha. Your speech, your bearing, you carry yourself with a strange sort of authority. And your eyes, I've seen legends of such power in ancient texts. The eye of command." CC chose that moment to reappear, leaning against a broken stall, a piece of flatbread in her hand. "Legends often have a kernel of truth, Ambassador. This boy, as you call him, is more than he appears. A new player on the board, perhaps. One who values equitable terms, unlike some others." Her gaze flicked pointedly towards the unconscious Koji, who was now being tended to by Suna medics. Temari's gaze darted between Naruto and CC, processing the implications. "You're telling me, you interfered with a diplomatic negotiation, and then saved the lives of the very people you were just persuading?" Her tone was incredulous, yet a hint of something else, intrigue, was audible. "One must cultivate good relations," Naruto said calmly, his blue eye twinkling, his red one still glowing faintly. "Especially when dealing with potential allies. Konoha's methods are crude. I prefer precision." The Suna elders, having recovered from the shock, approached. "Who are you, young man?" one of them asked, his voice firm, yet respectful, having witnessed Naruto's incredible display. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," he replied, his voice clear and resonant, carrying an undeniable authority that settled the agitated crowd. "And this is CC. We are travelers, and we have an interest in seeing Suna prosper, free from the manipulations of those who would exploit it." The elders exchanged glances. Temari stepped forward. "He is an unknown, elders," she stated, her voice calm. though her eyes were still fixed on Naruto. But he demonstrated remarkable skill, both in combat and in foresight regarding Konoha's true intentions. He prevented a major incident here today. After much debate, and with Temari's grudging but firm recommendation, the Suna Council offered Naruto and CC temporary sanctuary. Not as official guests, but as neutral observers, given a small, secluded house on the outskirts of the city. Temari herself was tasked with keeping a close eye on them, a duty she accepted with a strange mix of annoyance and fascination. Later that evening, as the desert sky blazed with countless stars, casting long, stark shadows across the sand, Temari found Naruto sitting on the rooftop of their temporary dwelling, gazing out at the vast, silent dunes. CC was inside, presumably enjoying a large slice of pizza she had somehow acquired. "So, Naruto Uzumaki," Temari began, her voice still sharp, but lacking its earlier edge. She sat down a respectful distance from him, the desert wind playing with her hair. "You saved me from a very inconvenient assassination attempt today. I owe you that much. But I don't trust you." "Good," Naruto replied, turning his head slightly, his Geass eye still a subtle ember in the darkness. "Trust is earned, Ambassador. And I haven't earned yours yet. But I did expose Koji's true intentions. And I did save the elders." "You did," she admitted, a hint of grudging respect in her voice. "And what you did in the assembly, that was not just persuasion. It was uncanny. I felt it, almost. A shift in the air, a clarity. What is the eye of command?" Naruto paused, considering. He didn't want to reveal too much, but he also sensed that Temari valued honesty, even uncomfortable truths. "It's a power, Ambassador. One I've only just gained. It allows me to influence perception, to see truths hidden beneath the surface. And, yes, to give certain suggestions that are difficult to ignore." "A dangerous power," Temari stated, her gaze sweeping the horizon. "Such things bring empires to their knees. Or build them," Naruto countered, his voice steady. "It depends on the will of the one who wields it." She looked at him then, her eyes piercing in the starlight. "And what is your will, Naruto Uzumaki?" Naruto met her gaze, his expression serious. "To see a world free from manipulation, free from hidden conflicts, to ensure that strength is used for something more than just domination." Temari was silent for a long moment, pondering his words. A grand ambition, perhaps a foolish one, given the nature of the world. She looked back at the city, at the wind turbines spinning slowly against the starlit sky. "But, after today, I find myself thinking that perhaps, just perhaps, it might not be entirely impossible. The Konoha Empire will not forget what happened here. They will come for you. And for Suna, if we ally with you." "I am aware," Naruto said, his voice holding no fear, only resolute certainty. "And when they do, Suna will have a choice. To stand alone, or to stand with someone who understands their true worth." Temari stood, dusting the sand from her robes. "A bold proposition, Naruto Uzumaki. Very bold, but perhaps not entirely unwelcome." She looked at him one last time, a hint of something unreadable, perhaps admiration, perhaps curiosity, in her eyes. "Good night, Sovereign." She left him on the rooftop, the vast desert stretching out around him, silent beneath the watchful stars. Naruto remained there for a long time, feeling the power of the Geass humming within him, a constant, growing presence. He had begun to learn its nuances, its subtleties. He had tested its reach, and he had found an unexpected ally in a shrewd, formidable woman. The chessboard was set, and he, the new king, had just made his first move. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The Steel Heart of the Mountain. The ceaseless, driving rain of Iowa was a stark contrast to the burning sands of Suna. Here, the sky was a perpetual canvas of bruised grays, reflecting the towering chrome structures that pierced it like metallic spears. The air hummed with electrical energy, thick with the scent of ozone and molten metal. A pervasive aroma that clung to the very fabric of existence. High-speed magnetic trains whizzed along elevated tracks, their metallic shriek momentarily piercing the rhythmic drum of the rain. Drones, silent and efficient, zipped through the organized chaos, overseeing the vast, sprawling industrial complexes that formed the very heart of the Iowa technocracy. This was a land forged in steel and circuit boards. A monument to ruthless efficiency and an unwavering belief in technological supremacy. Naruto felt the change in atmosphere viscerally. The vibrant energy of Suna had given way to a colder, more precise hum of advanced machinery. His Geass, ever active, picked up the intricate network of energy conduits beneath the city, the complex algorithms governing the drone traffic. The subtle anxieties of a populace driven by merit and production quotas. CC, ever the connoisseur of human ambition, seemed almost invigorated by the sheer scale of Iwa's ambition. A nation built on ingenuity and a touch of brutal pragmatism, CC mused, her voice barely audible over the patter of rain on the translucent canopy they walked beneath. They believe strength is quantifiable, replicable, and ultimately, industrial. A fascinating contrast to Suna's reliance on tradition and elemental magic. And our objective here? Naruto asked, his voice steady. His mind, sharpened by the Geass, was already mapping the visible energy signatures, analyzing potential access points. Resources, little king, CC replied, her eyes scanning the gleaming facades of the towering factories. Iwa possesses the most advanced material science and cybernetics in this region. The Zero Dawn cult, if they are truly as pervasive as Xian's future whispers suggest, will require such advancements. We must ascertain their connections here, and perhaps, acquire some of Iwa's secrets for ourselves. Knowledge is power, after all, especially when wielded by a sovereign. Their entrance into Iwa was less dramatic than their arrival in Suna. Temari, ever pragmatic, had used her diplomatic connections to arrange their passage as technical consultants, under a false pretense, a collaborative research initiative between Suna and Iwa. A common enough occurrence to avoid immediate suspicion. Kuretsuchi, as head of research and development for Iwa's Ministry of Applied Technologies, was mentioned as a key figure they would potentially liaise with. Naruto had immediately sensed the name's significance through Temari's carefully neutral tone. She clearly respected Kuretsuchi's abilities, a rare admission for the proud Suna ambassador. The temporary accommodation they were provided was austere but efficient, a module within a vast, self-sustaining complex. Temari, though part of their uneasy alliance, kept a professional distance, observing Naruto with a wary fascination that hadn't quite faded. Kuretsuchi is formidable, Temari had warned him over a bland but nutritionally complete Iwa protein paste. Brilliant, but abrasive, she tolerates no fools and believes entirely in Iwa's technical superiority. If you wish to acquire secrets, as CC so delicately put it, you'll need to impress her. Or outwit her. Naruto merely smiled, a glint of challenge in his Geass-enhanced eye. I prefer both. Their opportunity came swiftly. Iwa, in its relentless pursuit of innovation, hosted frequent, high-stakes technical competitions, designed to identify and recruit the brightest minds, even those from rival nations. This week's challenge was a prototype energy condenser, a device Kruk IAL for powering Iwa's next generation of defense platforms. It had developed a critical, intermittent flaw, and the best engineers had been stumped. The prize for its repair, unprecedented access to Iwa's secured research archives. Naruto saw it as a perfect opportunity. He would pose as a rogue technician, using his Geass to intuit the complex schematics and subtle energy fluctuations that eluded conventional analysis. He submitted his name, accompanied by CC as his technical assistant. Temari, observing from the sidelines, found herself strangely intrigued. The competition hall was a cavernous space, filled with the hum of test equipment and the low murmur of intense concentration. Other competitors, Iwa's elite engineers, some with cybernetic enhancements, hunched over their workstations, their faces etched with frustration. At the front, overseeing the proceedings with an almost intimidating intensity, was Kuretsuchi. She was smaller than Naruto had expected, but her presence was immense. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sharp, no-nonsense style. Her eyes, piercing and intelligent, missed nothing. She wore a sleek, reinforced bodysuit that hinted at her combat readiness, and her hands, though delicate, moved with a surprising strength as she fiddled with a complex holographic display. Her aura was one of relentless drive, of pure, unadulterated competence. All right, you squabbling idiots. Kuretsuchi's voice, though sharp, carried easily through the hall, laced with a distinct, almost clipped accent. You have exactly 72 hours. This condenser is Iwa's future. Fix it, or I'll replace every last one of you with a sentient wrench. A ripple of nervous laughter, quickly stifled, went through the room. Naruto approached his designated workstation, a holographic schematic of the faulty condenser shimmering before him. Other engineers immediately delved into complex calculations, running simulations, testing various components. Naruto, however, simply looked. His Geass burned, peeling back layers of complexity, revealing the underlying energy flows, the subtle interplay of forces. He saw the condenser not as a machine, but as a living entity, its flawed pulse a clear anomaly. Fascinating, CC murmured beside him, her pale finger tracing a line on the holographic display that only Naruto's Geass could truly perceive. A quantum entanglement feedback loop, exacerbated by an imperfect resonant frequency in the primary power coil. A subtle flaw, but catastrophic at scale. Naruto nodded, already reaching for a small, specialized tool. He didn't need to dismantle the entire unit. He needed only to make one precise, almost imperceptible adjustment. He began to work, his movements economical, precise, almost meditative. He ignored the frantic activity of the other engineers. The subtle glances they shot his way. Kuretsuchi, observing from her elevated platform, noticed him. She was accustomed to the bluster and over-analysis of engineers. This Naruto Uzumaki, was doing nothing of the sort. He was just working. With a quiet confidence that bordered on arrogance. She narrowed her eyes, her interest peaked. Hours bled into one another. Other engineers struggled. Some gave up, defeated. Naruto continued, unhurried, focused. His Geass showed him the optimal path, the single, perfect solution that bypassed months of conventional troubleshooting. He reached a final, almost microscopic component, his hand steady as he made a minute adjustment. A soft, resonant hum filled the hall, different from the previous, erratic pulse. The condenser, previously flickering, now glowed with a steady, powerful light, its energy readings stabilizing at optimal levels. A ripple of stunned silence spread through the hall. Kuretsuchi, who had been watching him intently, strode towards his workstation, her footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of disbelief and intense scrutiny. She leaned over the condenser, her own enhanced vision scrutinizing the readings. Her eyes widened, almost imperceptibly. Impossible, she breathed, her voice low, a rare admission of surprise. You fixed it. But how? You didn't even run diagnostics. You just touched it. I saw the flaw, Naruto replied simply, meeting her piercing gaze. His Geass eye was a subtle glow beneath the laboratory lighting. It was a matter of resonance. A subtle imbalance in the harmonic frequencies. A simple adjustment. Kuretsuchi stared at him, then at the perfectly operating condenser, then back at him. Simple. You just bypassed months of high-level analysis. You're either a genius, or a charlatan. Her voice was sharp, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of fascination. Show me your calculations, your schematics. I don't have any, Naruto said, shrugging slightly. I just knew. A muscle twitched in Kuretsuchi's jaw. Just knew, she repeated, her voice rising in disbelief. This isn't some back-alley mechanics trick, boy. This is cutting-edge Iwa technology. Perhaps your cutting-edge technology relies too much on data, and not enough on intuition, CC interjected smoothly, leaning against the workstation, a faint, sardonic smile on her lips. Some truths are not found in numbers, but in the harmony of systems. A concept Iwa might do well to consider. Kuretsuchi whirled on CC, her eyes blazing. And who are you, with your cryptic nonsense? His spiritual advisor. Something like that, CC purred, unperturbed. I simply provide perspective. And occasionally, pizza. Kuretsuchi turned back to Naruto, her frustration warring with her intellectual curiosity. Fine, you fixed it. Impressive. But I want to see how. You will come with me. You will explain your intuition in excruciating detail. She pointed a finger at him. And don't think for a second that this means you've earned my trust. You're an enigma, Uzumaki. And enigmas are either breakthroughs or liabilities. Before Naruto could reply, a sudden, piercing alarm blared through the complex. Red lights flashed, casting an ominous glow on the chrome surfaces. Intrusion alert. Sector Beta 9 compromised. Possible sabotage. An automated voice blared over the loudspeakers. Kuretsuchi's eyes narrowed. Sabotage. That's impossible. Our security is BETA-9. That's the new arc reactor prototype. Her expression shift. D from professional annoyance to fierce determination. Stay here, Uzumaki. You're just a technician. But Naruto was already moving. His Geass had immediately identified the source of the alarm, a concentrated burst of chaotic energy. Unlike anything Iwa's systems would produce. It felt familiar, like the fleeting, malicious surges he'd felt from the Zero Dawn cult. The cult, Naruto stated, his voice calm, cutting through the blaring alarm. They're targeting the arc reactor. Kuretsuchi paused, turning back, her eyes wide. How could you possibly know that? My intuition is rather precise, Naruto said, already striding towards the exit. They're not interested in stealing it. They want to overload it. To trigger a localized energy singularity. It would destabilize the entire Iwa power grid. Kuretsuchi hesitated for only a fraction of a second. She trusted her own analysis, and his impossible deduction of the condenser's flaw had earned him a sliver of grudging credibility. Impossible. My security protocols are ironclad. Evidently not, CC said dryly, following Naruto. They clearly have inside access. Or a unique means of bypass. Given the nature of this cult, I'd bet on both. Don't you dare follow me, Uzumaki. Kuretsuchi snapped, but she was already running, activating her enhanced combat boots which whirred to life, propelling her forward at an astonishing speed. Naruto easily kept pace, his own movements unnaturally fluid. His Geass was now showing him not just the threat, but the most efficient path through the complex, bypassing panicked civilians and security checkpoints. He wasn't just observing the chaos, he was orchestrating his way through it. They arrived at Sector BETA-9, a massive, reinforced chamber housing a colossal, humming arc reactor. Its core glowing with incandescent energy. 3 figures, clad in the same dark, cloaked attire as the Konoha Anbu assassins, were already at work, planting disruptor charges on the reactor's conduits. Their movements were precise, confident. They were Zero Dawn cult operatives. Kuretsuchi immediately engaged, a blur of motion. She deployed miniature drones from her gauntlets, which buzzed forward, firing concentrated energy bursts. She unleashed a devastating flurry of close-quarters combat, combining her enhanced physical strength with tactical energy blasts from her integrated suit. She as a whirlwind of controlled destruction, a combat engineer as formidable as any frontline soldier. The cult operatives, however, were not ordinary thugs. They moved with a chilling synchronization, their cloaks shimmering, deflecting some of Kuretsuchi's attacks. One of them, seemingly their leader, activated a device that generated a localized electromagnetic pulse, momentarily disabling Kuretsuchi's drones and causing her suit to flicker. Pathetic Iwa technology, the cult leader sneered, his voice distorted by a modulator. Your reliance on machines makes you predictable. Naruto stepped in. His Geass, now fully engaged, showed him the energy frequencies of the cult leader's EMP device, the weak points in their coordinated attacks. He didn't rely on technology. He relied on pure, unadulterated will. Overconfident cultist, Naruto retorted, his voice calm amidst the chaos. He manifested a small, almost invisible surge of Geass energy, directed at the cult leader's EMP device. He didn't destroy it, he simply reversed its polarity. The device backfired spectacularly, unleashing a surge of raw electromagnetic energy that enveloped the cult leader, frying his suit and sending him sprawling, twitching. The other 2 operatives, startled, momentarily froze. Kuretsuchi, her systems rebooting, stared at the fallen leader, then at Naruto. What did you do? A subtle adjustment, Naruto replied, already moving. Engaging the remaining 2 operatives. He didn't use flashy jutsu or overwhelming force. His combat style was fluid, unpredictable, a seamless blend of martial arts and subtle Geass applications. He would influence their balance, make them misstep, cause their weapon to jam for a split second, giving him the opening he needed. He was not just fighting, he was dancing through their attacks. Controlling the rhythm of the engagement. One operative lunged, a plasma blade shimmering. Naruto's Geass made him anticipate the exact trajectory. He sidestepped with impossible grace, then, with a focused burst of will, caused the operative's own body to briefly lock up, his muscles seizing. In that instant, Naruto disarmed him, then delivered a precise, non-lethal strike to the neck, rendering him unconscious. The final operative, seeing his comrades fall with such inexplicable ease, hesitated. He activated a cloaking device, attempting to vanish from sight. "Don't bother," Naruto's voice echoed from the now empty space where the operative had been. "I can still see you." His Geass cut through the cloaking field, revealing the faint distortion in the air. He wasn't seeing with his eyes. He was perceiving the subtle energy disruption, the shift in atmospheric pressure. He moved, striking the invisible assailant with a speed that left Kuretsuchi gasping. The operative crumpled, his cloaking device sputtering. Kuretsuchi stared at the three unconscious cult operatives, then at the arc reactor, now slowly stabilizing, the disruptor charges neutralized. She looked at Naruto, her eyes wide with a mix of disbelief, frustration, and an unwilling admiration. You just reversed an EMP field with your bare hands." She stammered, her usual composure utterly shattered. "And you saw through a military-grade cloaking device. How is that even possible?" Naruto merely smiled, a confident, slightly mischievous grin. "Perhaps my intuition is more advanced than your technology." Engineer Kuretsuchi, CC sauntered into the chamber, a faint, almost imperceptible aura of amusement around her. She surveyed the scene, then plucked a small, charred data chip from the cult leader's ruined suit. "These operatives possess high-grade data encryption modules, and this one seems to have a direct uplink to some very unpleasant information." She tossed the chip to Naruto. "A small reward for your efforts, little king." Naruto caught the chip. His Geass immediately began to interface with it, bypassing its encryption with effortless ease. Images and data flooded his mind. Schematics of other Iowa facilities, infiltration routes, a partial manifest of Zero Dawn cult operatives within Iowa's lower echelons, and tantalizing hints of their ultimate goal, a global synchronized power drain. A catastrophic event designed to plunge the world into a new dark age, ripe for their reformation. Kuretsuchi, recovering her composure, strode forward, her expression fierce. "Give me that chip, Uzumaki. That's Iowa property." Naruto looked up, his Geass eye burning. "It contains information vital to the survival of all nations, engineer. Your own included. It proves that the Zero Dawn cult has infiltrated your supposedly ironclad security. And their goal is to cripple your most vital infrastructure." He projected the image of the cult's devastating plan directly into her mind, a brief, undeniable flash of horrifying data, carefully selected so as not to overwhelm her, but to shock her into understanding. Kuretsuchi reeled back, a look of profound shock and anger on her face. That's impossible. Our internal security, a global blackout. You're lying." "Am I?" Naruto countered, his voice steady, his gaze unwavering. "You saw my intuition on the condenser. You saw what I just did to your enemies. Do you truly believe I am lying about something so critical?" She stared at him, torn between disbelief and the undeniable evidence of his unique abilities. Her scientific mind, though rigid, was ultimately driven by truth and efficiency. And the truth, however outlandish, was undeniable. "All right, Uzumaki," she said, her voice tight, a vein throbbing in her temple. "You've proven your unusual capabilities. You say this cult has infiltrated Iowa. You say they want to destroy us from within. Prove it further. Give me the intel. Show me how to purge them. If what you say is true, then Iowa will consider a temporary alliance. But only if you can keep up and contribute substantially. I tolerate no dead weight." Her eyes held a new, competitive fire. A challenge that went beyond professional rivalry. It was personal. "Keep up, engineer." Naruto smirked, a genuine, confident smile. "I intend to lead." Kuretsuchi snorted, a sharp, almost amused sound. "Bold words, Uzumaki. Very bold. But Iowa appreciates boldness when it's backed by results. Show me more results, and maybe, just maybe, I'll consider you less of an enigma and more of an asset." She looked at him with a gaze that held a flicker of something new, not just respect, but a nascent, almost physical attraction to his sheer audacious competence. Later, in a heavily reinforced, secure Iowa facility, Naruto, with CC's quiet guidance, used his Geass to meticulously decrypt the cult's data chip. He projected the information onto a holographic display, allowing Kuretsuchi and a small team of her most trusted technicians to see the full extent of the cult's infiltration and their plans. He answered her rapid-fire questions with ease, providing insights that baffled her, revealing vulnerabilities in Iowa's systems that she hadn't conceived of. This is a masterpiece of counterintelligence, Kuretsuchi murmured, a rare look of awe on her face. You see, and cut through their encryption like it's tissue paper. And you understand our systems better than my own lead architects. It's infuriating, and frankly, a little stimulating. Naruto met her gaze, a shared understanding passing between them, a respect for competence, for the purity of intellectual challenge. Their initial rivalry had melted into something far more interesting, a dynamic built on a mutual appreciation for pushing boundaries. So, Engineer Kuretsuchi, Naruto said, leaning back, the Geass eye still a subtle thrum beneath his eyelid. Are you convinced now that I'm more than just a technician? She scoffed, but there was no real malice in it. You're a damned anomaly, Uzumaki. A walking, talking paradox. But you get results, and right now, Iowa needs results more than it needs to understand your methods. She folded her arms, her stance still defensive, but her eyes held a spark of something new. Consider this a provisional alliance, then. You help us purge this cult, and Iowa provides resources. And perhaps, I'll even teach you how to build a proper anti-gravity cannon. You seem like you might appreciate the raw power. Naruto grinned. I appreciate competence, engineer. And you, clearly, have it in spades. Kuretsuchi's lips twitched upwards in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Don't get cocky, Uzumaki. Just because you can bend reality doesn't mean you can out-engineer me. This is merely the first round. Her tone was a challenge, a promise of future intellectual sparring, and beneath it, a definite, fiery attraction. CC, watching from the corner of the lab, a slice of pizza appearing silently in her hand, simply offered a small, knowing smile. The King's Court was growing, and its members were as formidable as the challenges they would face. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The Serene Veil and Hidden Eyes. The incessant hum of Iowa's machinery and the relentless patter of its rain faded into a distant memory, replaced by the profound, almost cred tranquility of the Hyuga ancestral compound. Nestled deep within a mist-shrouded forest on the very outskirts of the sprawling Konoha Empire, it was a place where ancient cherry blossoms, perpetually in bloom, cast delicate pink petals onto moss-covered stone paths. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense and damp earth, a stark, almost suffocating contrast to the industrial tang of Iowa. Here, silence was not merely an absence of noise, but a presence, a heavy, venerable cloak woven from centuries of rigid tradition and arcane secrets. Naruto felt the shift in atmosphere immediately. His Geass, previously overwhelmed by the chaotic energy signatures of Iowa's technology, now settled into a quieter, more profound resonance. He perceived the intricate chakra pathways woven in to the very architecture of the compound, the subtle spiritual wards that permeated the mist, the almost suffocating weight of expectation that hung over every Hyuga. This place was a fortress of the spirit as much as of stone. The Hyuga clan, CC murmured, her voice uncharacteristically soft, reflecting the solemnity of their surroundings. She walked beside Naruto, her usually cynical expressee, replaced by one of thoughtful observation. A lineage as old as Konoha itself, perhaps older. They speak of pure eyes, of a sight that transcends the ordinary. My intel suggests they guard not just a power, but a history. A very specific, very dangerous history concerning the deeper mechanics of the Geass. Tamari, accompanying them as a neutral, if wary, diplomatic escort, adjusted her robes, her sharp eyes taking in the serene yet unnerving beauty of the compound. The Hyuga are reclusive, arrogant. They believe their bloodline makes them superior, untouchable. Gaining an audience will be difficult. Gaining their trust, impossible. Kuretsuchi, for her part, looked almost comically out of place. Her sleek, tactical suit seemed an anachronism amidst the flowing silks and ancient aesthetics. She sniffed, unimpressed. All this mysticism, Give me a good, solid energy barrier over these spiritual trinkets any day. Naruto merely observed, his Geass eye burning with a quiet intensity. He saw the subtle flickers of anxiety beneath Temari's stoic demeanor, the genuine discomfort of Kuretsuchi. He also felt something else, something deeply disturbing beneath the compound's serene veneer, a current of hidden suffering, of suppressed individuality. Their first attempt to gain entry was met with stoic, unyielding resistance. The Hyuga guards, their pupils distinctively pale, almost milky, due to their Byakugan, their unique visual prowess. Simply stated, the Hyuga compound is closed to outsiders. Your presence is unwelcome. No aggression, no threats, just an immovable wall of tradition. Naruto, however, had a different approach. He didn't try to force his way in. He stood, quietly observing the guards, his Geass allowing him to perceive the subtle, almost imperceptible CGNS of their internal conflicts. The flicker of boredom, the sigh of weariness hidden beneath their disciplined poses, the brief longing for a life beyond the compound walls. He focused his Geass, not on a direct command, but on a subtle projection of vulnerability. Not his own, but a shared human experience of being trapped, of longing for something more. It was a faint, almost subliminal resonance. One of the younger guards, barely out of his teens, stiffened. A fleeting expression of internal conflict crossed his face. He didn't open the gates. He just hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. A sliver of doubt, a crack in the rigid Hyuga facade. Just then, a figure emerged from deeper within the compound. She was slender, with long, dark blue hair that framed a face of delicate features. Her eyes, however, were the most striking, the same pale, almost luminescent Byakugan as the guards, but in her, they held a profound depth, a quiet strength, and an unmistakable aura of gentle melancholy. This was Hinata Hyuga, the heiress of the main branch, though Naruto, again, simply knew it with the uncanny certainty of his Geass. Hinata's Byakugan, Naruto instantly perceived, was not merely a tool for observation. It was a form of techno-magical foresight, allowing her to perceive not just chakra pathways, but the intricate threads of possibility, the subtle ripples in time and causality. She was an oracle of the immediate future, a seer of truths, but it was a power that seemed to weigh heavily upon her. He felt her profound empathy, her quiet sorrow for the suffering she perceived, and her simmering frustration with the rigid confines of her existence. Hinata looked at Naruto, and her Byakugan widened almost imperceptibly. Her gaze lingered on his burning left eye, and for a fleeting moment, a flicker of raw recognition, almost of awe, crossed her face. She saw not just the power, but the kindness, the empathy that radiated from him, a stark contrast to the cold, calculating individuals who often sought the Hyuga's aid. Forgive my guards, strangers. Hinata's voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it carried an undeniable authority. Their vigilance is born of duty. But I sense no malice from you. Only purpose. Her eyes met Naruto's, and a silent conversation passed between them, a profound understanding that transcended words. She saw his true nature. Perhaps even glimpsed the Geass of kings. We seek knowledge, Priestess Hinata, Naruto said, his voice gentle, devoid of any command, reflecting the serene atmosphere. Knowledge that could benefit all, not just your clan. We mean no harm to the Hyuga, only to protect a greater peace. Hinata turned to the guards. Allow them entry. They are guests of the main house. Her voice was soft, but the command was absolute. The guards, though confused, obeyed instantly, their rigid postures relaxing slightly. The large, heavy gates swung open with a slow creak, revealing a path winding through the cherry blossoms. Inside the compound, Hinata led them through meticulously manicured gardens, past ancient pagodas and serene koi ponds. The pervasive atmosphere of rigid tradition weighed on Hinata. Naruto could sense her internal conflict, her deep love for her clan, battling with a stifling desire for individuality and freedom. The Hyuga, for all their power, seemed trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. Their lives dictated by ancient prophecies and the demands of their pure bloodline. They were led to a traditional tea room, where Hinata served them herself, her movements graceful and precise. Temari and Kuretsuchi remained outwardly respectful, but their unease was palpable. CC, however, watched Hinata with a rare, contemplative gaze. The Hyuga Byakugan, CC finally said, breaking the quiet. It perceives all chakra, all energy. Can it perceive the very fabric of fate, priestess? Hinata's eyes lowered slightly. My Byakugan shows me the threads of possibility. The echoes of future sorrow. It is a gift, and a curse. Our clan has always been tasked with anticipating the great shifts, the coming cataclysms. And the current threads, they speak of a great darkness, a zero dawn. Naruto leaned forward. You've heard of the Zero Dawn cult. Not by that name, Hinata corrected softly. But their influence is a growing shadow in the threads. They seek to unravel destiny. To rewrite the future through chaos. Our elders, they interpret the prophecies differently. They believe the darkness is inevitable, a cleansing fire. They speak of a sacred unbinding, a sacrifice to cleanse the world. They believe our Byakugan is meant to guide this process. Her voice was laced with a deep, almost painful sadness. Naruto's Geass burned. He saw it then. The subtle manipulation. The Zero Dawn cult wasn't just an external threat. They had subtly warped the Hyuga's ancient prophecies, twisting their interpretations to serve the cult's own destructive ends. The sacred unbinding was a thinly veiled guise for a global sacrificial ritual, utilizing the Hyuga's precognitive abilities to pinpoint key energy nodes for their ultimate cataclysm. And the Hyuga elders, steeped in tradition, were falling for it. They are being misled, Naruto stated, his voice firm, drawing Hinata's wide Byakugan eyes to him. The sacred unbinding is a lie. It's a trick. The Zero Dawn cult seeks to destroy, not to cleanse. And they plan to use the Hyuga's power, and your own unique Byakugan, to do it. Hinata gasped, her delicate hands trembling slightly. That is impossible. Our elders are honorable. They would never. They follow the ancient scriptures. Their scriptures have been reinterpreted, warped over generations of subtle influence, CC added, her voice chillingly precise. The cult operates through whispers, through the slow erosion of truth. They exploit faith, tradition, and fear. Suddenly, the serene atmosphere shattered. A harsh, ringing alarm echoed through the compound. Intruder alert, sacred crypt breached, main branch elders compromised. Hinata blanched. The sacred crypt, that's where the oldest prophecies are kept. And the elders, they are performing a purification ritual there. Naruto's Geass showed him the truth instantly. It wasn't an intruder. It was an internal coup. A faction within the Hyuga, deeply swayed by the Zero Dawn cult's twisted ideology, was attempting to seize control, to accelerate the sacred unbinding ritual and sacrifice the main branch elders, believing it would usher in their perceived new era. They plan to use Hinata's Byakugan to focus the ritual's power, even against her will. It's not an intrusion, Hinata, Naruto said, his voice resonating with an unshakable conviction. It's a betrayal, a forced ritual. They're going to use your power to unleash this unbinding. Hinata's face was pale, but a flicker of defiance entered her eyes. Her Byakugan pulsed with a quiet resolve. No, I will not let them. Not if it means destroying everything. She looked at Naruto, her voice firmer than he'd heard it. Will you help me, Naruto-kun? To save my clan from themselves. The use of Naruto-kun, so personal, so trusting, sent a surprising warmth through him. He met her gaze, his Geass eye burning not with command, but with fierce determination. Always, Hinata, we will stop them. They moved swiftly. Tamari unleashed a controlled gust of wind that cleared a path through a group of stunned Hyuga guards who tried to intercept them, not harming them, but sending them sprawling. Kuretsuchi deployed small, EMP-emitting drones that precisely disabled the security systems of a side entrance, creating an opening. Hurry! Kuretsuchi barked, her technical mind already assessing the situation. That ritual will generate a massive energy signature. If they destabilize it, it could trigger a localized void. We need to cut their power source. They burst into the sacred crypt. It was a cavernous, ancient space, lit by flickering, eerie blue flames. Several elder Hyuga, their faces contorted in pain and fear, were bound to ceremonial pillars, their chakra being slowly siphoned away into a glowing crystalline altar at the center. Around them, clad in dark robes that mirrored the cultists they'd encountered before, were the rogue Hyuga, their Byakugan eyes glowing with a zealous, frightening intensity. Their leader, a stern-faced, high-ranking elder named Hizashi, chanted over the altar, his face a mask of fanatical devotion. "The time of unbinding is upon us," Hizashi bellowed, his voice echoing in the crypt. "The old world must burn for the new to rise." Hinata gasped, recognizing some of the rogue Hyuga, family members, distant relatives, now consumed by the cult's insidious influence. "Stop," she cried, stepping forward, her Byakugan blazing. "This is not the Hyuga way. This is destruction." Hizashi turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw Hinata. "Niece, you are blind. You cling to the dying light. Join us. Embrace the true destiny. Your pure Byakugan is the final catalyst." He extended a hand, a disturbing smile on his face. Naruto didn't hesitate. He launched himself forward, his Geass amplifying his speed and power. He didn't just fight the rogue Hyuga, he dismantled their coordination, subtly shifting their balance, causing them to interfere with each other, creating openings for his allies. Temari's fan roared, unleashing focused blasts of wind that scattered the cultists, disrupting their chants. Kuritsuchi, with startling agility, dodged their chakra strikes and deployed energy restraints, efficiently neutralizing several. CC, with her elusive movements, slipped through their ranks, severing minor energy conduits powering the ritual. But the cultists were numerous, and fanatical. Hinata, seeing her beloved clan members twisted by this dark power, fought with a fierce, almost desperate grace. She moved with a fluid, precise martial art, her palms striking vital points. But she held back, unwilling to inflict lethal force on her own kin. She was struggling against her empathy. Naruto saw it. Her internal conflict was a palpable thing. Her power was immense, but her compassion was holding her back. He had to unleash her, not through command, but through belief. He fought his way to her side, deflecting a flurry of chakra needles aimed at her. "Hinata," he yelled, his voice cutting through the din of battle, infused with a subtle, unyielding command from his Geass. Not a command to obey him, but a command to believe in her own strength. "Don't hold back. They are not your clan anymore. They are tools of the Zero Dawn. You are the Byakugan's true heir. Unleash your power. Protect your home." Hinata's eyes widened, a shock of understanding passing through her. She looked at Naruto, and in his fierce gaze, she saw not judgment, but absolute faith. Her internal struggle snapped. A profound, almost overwhelming surge of power emanated from her. Her Byakugan flared, no longer just perceiving, but actively manipulating the intricate chakra pathways of her opponents. "Gentle step. Twin lion fists," she roared, her voice echoing with newfound power. Two massive, swirling chakra lions, pure white and crackling with raw energy, materialized around her hands. She launched herself into the fray, her movements no longer hesitant, but decisive, overwhelming. The lions tore through the cultists' chakra defenses, disrupting their systems, rendering them powerless without lethal force. They collapsed, unconscious, their eyes dull, the fanaticism draining from them. Hizashi, enraged, abandoned the ritual, turning his furious gaze on Hinata. "Traitor, you defy destiny." He unleashed a powerful, corrupted Byakugan technique, a wave of destructive chakra aimed at Hinata. Naruto moved, intercepting the attack. He didn't block it conventionally. His Geass burned, and he redirected the attack, twisting its trajectory, sending it harmlessly into the crypt wall. "Your destiny is a lie, Hizashi," Naruto bellowed, his voice resonating with sovereign authority. "The only destiny is the one we forge ourselves." He then engaged Hizashi, a brutal clash of wills. Hizashi's Byakugan was powerful, but Naruto's Geass was something else entirely, a power that transcended chakra, a force that bent reality. Naruto's every move was a counter, every attack a subtle manipulation. He could make Hizashi's limbs feel heavy, his mind clouded, his perception distorted. He disarmed him, then with a precise Geass burst, shattered the cult's influence over Hizashi, leaving him gasping. Confused, and utterly defeated, collapsed beside the altar. With Hizashi subdued and the rogue Hyuga neutralized, the glowing altar flickered, its insidious power draining away. The bound elders sagged in relief, their chakra slowly returning. Hinata stood, her breathing heavy, the chakra lions fading from her hands. She looked at the unconscious cultists, then at the weakened elders. And finally, her gaze settled on Naruto. Tears welled in her Byakugan eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound gratitude and dawning realization. You saved us, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You saw the truth. You showed me my own strength. She approached him, her hand reaching out, hesitantly, to touch his arm. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you. Naruto gently covered her hand with his own, a comforting, reassuring gesture. You found the strength within yourself, Hinata. I merely pointed the way. He looked around the damaged crypt. This cult. They are everywhere. They twist what is sacred, corrupt what is pure. We must stop them. And your insight, your Byakugan, will be invaluable. Hinata nodded, her resolve hardening. I will fight them. I will use my Byakugan to reveal their hidden threads, to expose their lies. For my clan, for the world, and, for you, Naruto-kun. Her grip on his arm tightened, a silent vow. Her quiet intensity, her fierce loyalty, and her profound empathy were now fully unleashed, undeniably drawn to Naruto's unwavering conviction and compassionate strength. The profound connection between them was palpable. As they emerged from the crypt, the remaining loyal Hyuga guards, bewildered but relieved, looked upon Naruto with dawning respect. CC watched the interaction between Naruto and Hinata, a faint, unreadable smile on her lips. Well, little king, CC murmured, stepping closer to Naruto as Hinata oversaw the recovery of the elders. It seems your court gains another powerful queen. One with eyes that see beyond the veil. Naruto simply nodded, his gaze on Hinata. The mist still clung to the ancient cherry blossoms, but the oppressive weight of tradition seemed to have lifted. A new, fragile, hope had been kindled in the serene heart of the Hyuga compound. And the Zero Dawn cult's insidious reach had been exposed, revealing a deeper, more pervasive threat. The threads of destiny were beginning to weave a more complex, dangerous pattern, with Naruto firmly at its center. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. Whispers of prophecy, echoes of ruin. The crisp mountain air of the hidden sanctuary bit at them, a stark, bracing counterpoint to the humid tranquility of the Hyuga compound. Here, high in the snowy peaks of a forgotten range, ancient temples carved directly into living ice glowed with an ethereal, mystic light, casting long, shifting shadows across the pristine snow. The wind, thin and sharp, carried the faint, haunting sound of chimes, a melodic counterpoint to the vast, encompassing silence. The atmosphere was one of profound solemnity, spiritual awe, and an undeniable melancholy, as if the very air itself mourned a coming sorrow. Naruto felt it immediately, a different kind of energy from the technological hum of Iwa or the magical pathways of Konoha and Suna. This was raw spiritual power, untamed, primal, yet focused with an unnerving precision. His Geass, previously used for strategic analysis and subtle influence, now resonated with the subtle vibrations of fate, the almost imperceptible whispers of the future. He perceived the countless threads of potential destinies, intertwining, diverging, coalescing into patterns of impending doom. This is the home of the oracles, little king, CC murmured, her breath misting in the frigid air. She pulled her white garment tighter around her, a rare hint of discomfort on her usually impassive face. They claim to see the future. I have encountered such seers before. Their gifts are often a curse, burdened by knowledge they cannot change. Tamari, despite her resilience, shivered, pulling her cloak tighter. The stories say these mountains are protected by ancient spirits. That those who intrude without reverence are lost in the blizzards. Their souls frozen. Kuritsuchi grumbled, stamping her feet. Spirits are not. My suit's thermal regulators are struggling with this altitude. And I still don't see why we to come all the way out here for whispers. Give me solid data any day. Hinata, however, seemed strangely at peace. Her Byakugan eyes, usually so burdened by what they perceived, now seemed to glow with a quiet anticipation. She sensed a kinship with the spiritual essence of this place. Their foresight is legendary, she whispered, her voice soft in the stillness. They guard truths that have been forgotten by the world below. Following the cryptic clues from the cult's decrypted data and Hinata's own Byakugan-enhanced intuition, Naruto had led his diverse team on a perilous journey. The Zero Dawn cult's ultimate plan, as hinted at in the recovered intel, seemed to involve not just physical destruction, but a fundamental reshaping of reality, a reset of the world through a grand ritual. And the key, it seemed, lay in ancient prophecies. Their path wound through treacherous, icy gorges, past petrified trees encased in glittering ice, until they reached a narrow, almost invisible pass. Beyond it, nestled in a vast, bowl-shaped valley, lay the sanctuary, a sprawling complex of ice and stone temples, connected by shimmering bridges of solidified mist. It was ethereal, breathtaking, and deeply unsettling. As they approached the main temple, figures emerged, clad in robes woven from silvery threads that seemed to absorb the light. Their faces were serene, unlined, with eyes that held an unnerving depth. As if they saw not the present, but the eons. Their leader stepped forward, a young woman with a regal bearing and an aura of profound sadness. This was Xian, the high priestess, the primary oracle. Her prophetic visions were said to be absolute, an inescapable truth. Xian's eyes, a piercing violet, immediately locked onto Naruto's burning red Geass eye. A gasp escaped her lips, her serene demeanor cracking. You carry the mark of the king. The one of legend. The one whose will defies destiny. You bring both salvation and ruin. Her voice was melodic, yet carried the weight of countless unseen sorrows. Priestess Xian, Naruto greeted, his voice respectful, sensing the immense burden she carried. We come seeking answers. We know of the Zero Dawn cult. We believe they are attempting to manipulate ancient prophecies to bring about global catastrophe. We need your insight to stop them. Xian's violet eyes, though seeing, seemed to look beyond him, into a terrifying future. The Zero Dawn, it is inevitable. The threads are too strong. They speak of a great undoing, a purification. The cult, they merely hasten what is already decreed. My visions, they show only despair. A world consumed by fire, a new beginning forged in ashes. She raised a slender hand, encompassing the desolate landscape around them. Every path I see leads to this ruin. Your arrival, it is merely a new thread, intertwined with the others, leading to the same inescapable conclusion. A chill went down Naruto's spine. Her fatalism was absolute, born of countless horrifying visions. His Geass, however, screamed defiance. He didn't believe in inevitable doom. He believed in the power of choice, of will. I refuse to accept that, priestess, Naruto said, his voice firm, resonating with conviction. Destiny is not a cage. It is a canvas. And we are the artists. Your visions show only what will happen if nothing changes. My Geass, it allows me to make changes. To forge new paths. To defy inevitability. He focused his Geass, not to command her, but to project an image into her mind. A flicker of alternative possibilities, of paths not yet taken, of a future where his will and the collective will of his allies actively reshaped the impending doom. Xian recoiled slightly, her eyes wide with shock. Impossible. You show me threads that do not exist. A future unwritten. CC stepped forward, her cynical amusement returning. That is the essence of his power, priestess. He doesn't simply command. He unravels and reweaves. He gives a true choice, where before there was only a single, predetermined path. Just then, the very air in the temple began to thicken. The ethereal light flickered. A deep, insidious hum resonated, not from the earth, but from within their own minds. Spectral figures began to coalesce from the mist, their eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. They were projections, not of physical beings, but of concentrated despair, of ancient failures. Of the collective sorrow of countless Geass users who had succumbed to their own power, or to the weight of their choices. The cult, Hinata cried, her Byakugan eyes wide with recognition. They're attacking our minds. They're trying to corrupt Xian's visions, to reinforce the despair. Kuretsuchi instantly recognized the energy signature. Psychic interference. They're us. Ing a high-frequency spiritual resonator. It's designed to amplify negative emotions. Tamari immediately raised her fan, but it was useless against an ethereal threat. The spectral figures swirled, whispering insidious doubts into their minds. You are weak. You will fail. Your efforts are futile. Despair. Embrace the inevitable. CC, for the first time, showed genuine fear. Her ancient memories flared, fragmented images of past Geass users, powerful individuals driven mad by their own abilities, by the weight of their decisions, by the endless cycle of conflict. Her face contorted in a rare display of vulnerability. No, not this. The whispers of those who failed, the echoes of their damnation. Xian clutched her head, her visions overwhelming her. The spectral figures intensified, twists. Ching her hopeful glimpse of Naruto's alternative future, corrupting it with images of his failure, his betrayal, his ultimate descent into tyrannical madness. Naruto felt the assault keenly. The whispers were insidious, targeting his deepest fears, his isolation, his past failures, the immense burden of the Geass of Kings. You will become a monster. You will lose yourself to power. You will command, and be alone. Just like the others. He saw projections of his own face, distorted, eyes burning with a cruel, cold light, turning on his allies, on the very people he sought to protect. He staggered, the mental assault almost overwhelming. But then, he remembered Hinata's unwavering belief in him, Temari's grudging respect, Kuretsuchi's challenging competitiveness, and CC's weary hope. He remembered his vow, to change destiny. No, Naruto roared, his voice cutting through the ethereal hum, amplified by the raw power of his Geass. His red eye blazed, not with despair, but with furious defiance. He wasn't just countering the psychic attack, he was projecting his own indomitable will, his unwavering conviction, his unshakable belief in humanity's capacity for choice. He stepped forward, enveloping Hinata and CC. In his presence, his Geass acting as a shield, deflecting the most potent whispers. He didn't just resist the despair, he rejected it. He turned the cult's own weapon against them. He amplified the echoes of his own triumphs, the strength of his own resolve, the unwavering hope he carried for a better future, projecting it outward. The spectral figures recoiled, screaming in silent agony as Naruto's sheer force of will shattered their illusions. The ancient failures, the echoes of damnation, could not stand against such purity of purpose. They flickered, distorted, and then dissolved into mist, leaving behind only the crisp mountain air and the faint scent of ozone. Xian collapsed, gasping, her violet eyes still wide, but now clear. She looked at Naruto, a profound awe replacing her despair. You shattered them. You fought the very concept of inevitability. You are, truly the king who defies the threads. CC, still shaken, leaned heavily against Naruto. Her usual composure had returned, but her amber eyes held a newfound respect, and a flicker of something akin to genuine gratitude. You are more than I anticipated, little king. Far more. You do not merely wield the Geass. You imbue it with your own, inconvenient stubbornness. My visions, they are clearing, Xian whispered, standing slowly. The Zero Dawn cult, they seek to reawaken a primordial entity. A world soul, they call it. To trigger a global Geass of oblivion, a complete rewrite of reality, purging all impurities. My prophecies were not of inevitable doom, but of their intended doom. They were manipulating the threads, guiding events to their desired outcome. They planned to use the convergence of ancient ley lines at a specific site, a place of great spiritual power, hidden within the Kiri maritime hegemony. The sunken palace of whispers. The revelation sent a chill down their spines. The Zero Dawn cult wasn't just a terrorist organization, it was a doomsday cult. Aiming for nothing less than absolute annihilation and recreation. So, they're not just blowing things up, they're trying to play God, Kuretsuchi muttered, shaking her head. Typical, always with the megalomania, and they are using distorted prophecies, and infiltrating systems, to make it seem inevitable, Hinata added, her Byakugan now focused, analyzing the new information with terrifying precision. They turn people's deepest fears against them. Xian looked at Naruto, her gaze unwavering. Your will, it is the only force I have ever seen that can truly defy the threads they weave. I can guide you. I can help you interpret the true prophecies, the ones they have hidden. I can show you the paths they do not wish you to see. She extended a hand, her expression one of profound trust and hope. I will lend you my sight, Naruto-kun, to ensure that the future remains unwritten, chosen by the living, not by the dead. Naruto took her hand, his grip firm. Then we will rewrite it together, Priestess Xian. No more inevitable ruin, only the future we choose to build. The bond formed between them was not one of command, but of deep, spiritual understanding. Xian, having found in Naruto a true counter to the despair that had plagued her, felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. Her initial fatalism had shattered, replaced by a profound faith in his ability to forge a new destiny. Her attraction was spiritual, born of recognizing him as the true, king, capable of guiding humanity away from ruin. As they prepared to leave the sanctuary, the quiet chimes seemed to sing a different tune, no longer mourning, but celebrating a fragile, dawning hope. The threat of the Zero Dawn cult had been unmasked, its ultimate horrifying goal revealed. And Naruto, having faced the echoes of despair and emerged victorious, now carried not just the Geass of kings, but the trust and profound loyalty of another powerful woman. The path ahead was treacherous, leading to the depths of the ocean and the heart of their enemy. But they would face it together. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. The Iron Serpent's Maw. The thin, crisp air of the snowy peaks vanished, replaced by the stale, metallic tang of recycled air and the low, omnipresent hum of Konoha's deep, multi-layered underground military complexes. Here, beneath the bustling streets of the capital, lay a labyrinth of reinforced steel, humming energy conduits, and ancient, magically shielded vaults. The atmosphere was heavy with a sense of oppressive power, a stark reflection of the Konoha Empire's rigid control and its vast, unseen might. Naruto felt the change in his Geass's resonance immediately. It was no longer perceiving subtle spiritual currents or technological frequencies. Here, it was a cacophony of raw, contained power, the thrum of massive generators, the disciplined flow of chakra through countless trained bodies, the intricate network of surveillance systems. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the sheer scale of military might. Konoha, the heart of the beast, CC murmured, her voice flat, devoid of her usual sardonic amusement. She watched the endless, disciplined march of armored guards through the transparent observation tunnels. They are not subtle, their power is overt, and their arrogance, absolute. This will be your most direct confrontation yet, little king. Tamari, for once, seemed wary. Konoha's defenses are legendary. Their Anbu operate with terrifying efficiency, and their tactical systems are designed to crush any dissent. Even with our combined strength, breaching this place will be a monumental task. Kuretsuchi, however, looked almost eager. Her eyes, typically sharp with analytical scrutiny, gleamed with a competitive fire. Massive, reinforced structures, complex energy grids, integrated defense systems. This is a proper challenge. My tech will eat through their firewalls like rust. Hinata, her Byakugan eyes scanning the complex schematics Naruto had projected, nodded grimly. The Zero Dawn cult has deeply infiltrated Konoha's core infrastructure. Shien's visions confirmed it. Their central node, the primary activation chamber for the sacred unbinding, is located deep within this complex. It's protected by layers of ancient sealing jutsu and cutting-edge Konoha technology. Shien, her usual ethereal demeanor sharpened by urgency, pointed to a flickering anomaly on the schematic. There, the cult's primary nexus point within this complex. The ley lines converge directly beneath it. If they activate the ritual here, the resulting global power drain will be catastrophic. Naruto's plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. A direct, multi-pronged assault on the most heavily fortified location in Konoha. But the stakes were too high. The Zero Dawn cult, emboldened by their infiltration and the general ignorance of the world, was preparing their final, devastating act. There was no time for subtlety, no room for half measures. Our target. The sacred unbinding, activation chamber. Naruto stated, his voice calm, resolute, cutting through the hum of the complex. His Geass eye burned with an unwavering focus. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. Each of you has a crucial role. Their infiltration began not with stealth, but with a calculated diversion. Kuretsuchi, using a combination of her unique sabotage tools and a targeted electromagnetic pulse, triggered a cascading series of power fluctuations in a distant, heavily guarded section of the complex. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and Konoha's forces scrambled, believing it to be a massive, conventional attack. Phase 1 complete. Kuretsuchi's voice crackled over their secure comms, a triumphant smirk evident in her tone. They're sending their heavy hitters to the decoy. Now's your window, King. Naruto, leading his compact strike team, moved with lightning speed through the service conduits and forgotten maintenance tunnels that Hinata's Byakugan had pinpointed from the complex schematics. Her enhanced vision allowed her to see not just the physical layout, but the intricate chakra pathways woven into the walls, identifying weak points and hidden passages. At even Konoha's architects had forgotten. To the left, Naruto-kun. A concealed pressure plate, activated by specific chakra resonance. Hinata's voice was calm, precise, guiding him through the dark. Naruto moved, pressing his palm against a section of wall that seemed identical to the rest. His Geass, coupled with Hinata's guidance, allowed him to channel his chakra with the exact resonance needed. A hidden door hissed open, revealing a narrow, dust-choked shaft. Temari was next. As they encountered the first wave of elite Konoha Guard patrols, she didn't engage directly. Instead, with a flick of her fan, she unleashed a blinding sandstorm within the confined corridors, her wind magic disrupting their vision, their comms, and their formation. Disoriented and contained, she barked over the comms. Move, move, move. CC. Meanwhile, was their invaluable strategic mind. Even in the thick of the action, she maintained a detached overview, processing incoming data from Naruto's Geass, analyzing enemy movements, and offering crucial tactical advice. Their response is predictable. They funnel forces down primary arteries. Use the ventilation shafts in Sector GAMMA3. It will bypass their next line of defense. Her insights were chillingly accurate. They descended deeper, the air growing colder, heavier. The hum of the arc reactor they had salvaged components from in Iowa, now integrated into Kuretsuchi's mobile power pack, provided a stable energy source for their equipment. They encountered pockets of Zero Dawn cult operatives, already entrenched. These were not mere zealots. They were highly trained, fanatical individuals, some possessing low-level Geass abilities or strange, dark chakra techniques. Naruto was at the forefront, a whirlwind of precise, devastating combat. His Geass of Kings was fully unleashed, not just for influence, but for direct, overwhelming power. He moved too fast to follow, his strikes infused with concentrated Geass energy that shattered defenses and bypassed even the strongest chakra shields. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he overwhelmed their very will to resist. A flick of his wrist, a surge of his red eye, and an opponent would freeze, locked in place. Their mind screaming at their body to move, unable to obey. He was a force of nature, a sovereign embodying absolute dominance in combat. They've fortified Sector DELTA-9 with a dimensional seal. Kuretsuchi shouted, her gauntlet firing a continuous stream of suppressive fire at cultists trying to swarm them. My breaches are slowing. Shien, can you see a weak point? Naruto yelled, deflecting a barrage of shadow clones with a single, Geass-enhanced hand strike that dissipated them into smoke. Shien, her violet eyes closed in concentration, was perched on a high pipe, her senses tuned to the energy flows. The seal is an ancient ritual. It draws on negative spiritual energy. I see, a distortion in the nexus point. A flicker of vulnerability where the ley lines twist. Kuretsuchi, focus a concentrated burst of destabilized energy at Shien's coordinates. Naruto commanded, his voice ringing with authority. Temari, prepare a wind vacuum to clear the resulting debris. Hinata, cover the rear flank. The team moved with seamless coordination. Kuretsuchi, with a mad glint in her eye, overloaded a specialized energy projector. Stand back, King. This is gonna be messy. She fired a blast of raw, chaotic energy at the coordinates Shien indicated. The dimensional seal shrieked, then cracked, its mystical energies clashing violently with Kuretsuchi's brute force technology. Temari immediately followed with a powerful wind vacuum, sucking away the resulting surge of destabilized energy and debris, preventing a cascade failure. The dimensional seal shattered, leaving a gaping, smoking hole in the reinforced wall. Entry secured. Hinata called out, her Byakugan eyes glowing, expertly deflecting a flanking attack from cultists with a flurry of precise gentle fist strikes. They plunged through the breach, deeper into the complex, the scent of ozone and burnt chakra thick in the air. The passages here were older, adorned with unsettling carvings of stylized eyes and ancient symbols. The hum of the arc reactor intensified, no longer a controlled thrum, but a frantic, escalating whine. They burst into the activation chamber. It was a massive, circular cavern, bathed in an ominous crimson light emanating from a colossal, pulsating crystal at its center. This was the ultimate nexus of ley lines, the heart of the sacred unbinding ritual. Dozens of Zero Dawn cult operatives, cloaked and chanting, surrounded the crystal, their faces masked by their hoods. At the very center, overseeing the ritual, was a figure radiating immense, malevolent power. It was Danzo Shimura, a high-ranking Konoha elder, long thought to be a staunch patriot, but secretly a puppet master, pulling strings from the shadows. His face was a mask of cold fanaticism, 1A. Covered in what looked like multiple Sharingan eyes, flickering with dark energy. His eyes, the one visible, gleamed with a terrifying ambition. He was the Konoha leader deeply entrenched with the cult. His patriotism, merely a twisted desire to reshape the world in his own image, believing himself to be the only one fit to rule. He possessed a terrifying counter-Geass ability, the ability to nullify limited Geass commands and create mental barriers. The king has arrived, Danzo's voice rasped, amplified by hidden speakers, filling the cavern with an unnerving resonance. You are too late, boy. The ritual is nearly complete. The world will be reborn. Under my vision. He swept his arm, and hundreds of masked cultists surged forward, their dark chakra flaring. He has a counter-Geass ability. CC's voice was urgent. He can disrupt your commands. You'll have to overwhelm him, Naruto, or find a blind spot. Naruto didn't hesitate. Temari, Kuretsuchi, create a perimeter. Hinata, Shien, pinpoint the ritual's energy flow. Find its anchor point. The battle erupted into a maelstrom of light and shadow. Temari conjured massive wind tornadoes, sweeping away dozens of cultists, creating a defensive perimeter. Kuretsuchi deployed a flurry of explosive charges and energy nets, her advanced weaponry carving a path through the enemy ranks. Hinata and Shien, their Byakugan and prophetic visions combining, peered through the chaos, seeking the core of the ritual. Naruto moved towards Danzo, directly confronting the counter-Geass user. Danzo unleashed a wave of dark chakra, imbued with a strange, distorting energy. Naruto felt his Geass flicker, his mental commands momentarily disrupted. This was a challenge unlike any he'd faced. Danzo launched himself forward, surprisingly agile, his Sharingan-covered arm crackling with dark lightning. You are an anomaly, boy. A cancer. I will burn your will from this world. Naruto met him head-on. He couldn't rely on direct commands against Danzo, not yet. This required a pure test of skill, a physical prowess combined with his Geass-enhanced intuition. He dodged, weaved, striking with blinding speed. His Geass, instead of commanding Danzo, analyzed him, his muscle movements, the subtle tells in his chakra flow, the minuscule delay in his thought processes. He saw the gaps, the openings. His Sharingan eyes are absorbing residual chakra from the ritual. Hinata yelled, her voice strained. They're getting stronger. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Danzo was using the cult's own ritual to empower himself, to fuel his counter-Geass. This wasn't just about defeating him. It was about stopping the ritual. He engaged Danzo in a brutal, high-stakes duel. Every parry, every strike, was a complex dance of power and perception. Naruto's speed was inhuman, his precision absolute. He didn't just fight Danzo. He was constantly probing, looking for a weakness in the counter-Geass, a moment of vulnerability. Meanwhile, CC used her knowledge of ancient rituals and her own limited Geass to identify sub-routines of the cult's chanting, subtly introducing discordant frequencies that caused minor feedback loops, disrupting their concentration. She wasn't a fighter, but her tactical genius and profound knowledge were invaluable. The anchor point, Shien cried out, her eyes blazing. The crystal, it's drawing energy from Danzo himself. He's both fueling and controlling it. The Sharingan on his arm. Hinata added, her Byakugan tracing the intricate chakra lines. They're not just absorbing, they're channeling. Cut the connections. Naruto saw it. The multiple Sharingan eyes on Danzo's arm were not just for combat. They were conduits, drawing power from the ritual and amplifying his counter-Geass. This was his weakness. With a burst of impossible speed, Naruto closed the distance, weaving through Danzo's defenses. He didn't aim for the head or the heart. He aimed for the Sharingan arm. Danzo reacted, bringing up his arm, shielding it with a powerful chakra barrier. Futile. Danzo roared, my defenses are absolute. But Naruto's Geass was already at work. He didn't command the barrier to break. He commanded Danzo's perception of the barrier to warp. To briefly perceive it as weaker, to momentarily shift his concentration. It was a subtle, psychological attack. For a split second, Danzo hesitated, his eyes widening. That was all Naruto needed. He slammed his fist, infused with a concentrated burst of Geass energy, directly into Danzo's Sharingan-covered arm. There was a sickening crunch. The Sharingan eyes shattered, grotesque pops and wet squishes echoing in the chamber. Danzo screamed, a raw, animalistic sound of pain and disbelief. With the conduit severed, the immense, pulsating crystal at the center of the chamber flickered violently. The ritual's energy supply was cut. The crimson light began to recede, replaced by a dull, flickering glow. The chanting cultists stumbled, their fanatical fervor draining from them as their power source faltered. No, my ritual, my future, Danzo shrieked, clutching his ruined arm, his counter Geass flickering uncontrollably. Naruto didn't give him a chance to recover. He moved, his Geass now overwhelming the weakened counter Geass. He looked into Danzo's eyes, his own burning red. Your future is over, Danzo. Your reign of twisted vision ends now. He unleashed a concentrated burst of Geass. Not a command for death, but a command for truth. For Danzo to see the full, horrifying consequences of his actions, the true destruction and suffering his rebirth would have wrought. Danzo's eyes widened, a scream dying in his throat as his mind was flooded with visions of the desolation, the horror, the utter emptiness of the world he sought to create. He saw the suffering, the twisted reality, not the glorious new dawn he envisioned. The weight of his own monstrous ambition crashed down on him. He collapsed, convulsing, his body racked not by physical pain, but by the sheer, overwhelming horror of his own twisted legacy. He was defeated, utterly broken, by his own truth. With Danzo neutralized, the cultists around the crystal altar collapsed, the minds fractured by the psychic backlash of the ritual's collapse and Naruto's Geass. The giant crystal at the center went dark, inert. The chamber fell silent, broken only by the heavy breathing of Naruto and his allies. Temari, Kuretsuchi, Hinata, and Shien converged on Naruto, their faces etched with exhaustion, but also with relief and awe. You stopped it, Hinata whispered, her eyes wide. The Zero Dawn, it was truly terrifying. He broke Danzo, Kuretsuchi said, her voice filled with a mixture of shock and respect. I've never seen anything like it. Not with a weapon, but with sheer will. The Geass of Kings, CC, said, her voice soft, almost reverent. You wield it with an understanding I have rarely seen. You turned his strength into his greatest weakness. Naruto looked at his hand, then at his allies. He was battered, exhausted, but exhilarated. They had faced the heart of the enemy's power, and they had won. But the victory came with a cost. Alarms blared across the entire Konoha complex, louder now, signaling their location. Konoha's elite forces were converging, drawn by the collapse of Danzo's psychic barriers and the sheer energy output of their battle. They know we're here, Temari said, her fan snapping open, her eyes scanning the reinforced exits. The whole empire is about to descend on us. Naruto looked at his weary but resolute team. Then we give them a show, Ambassador. The Konoha Empire needs to understand. A new power has risen. One that will not be silenced. One that fights for a different future. He raised his hand, his Geass eye burning with an unyielding light. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. Konoha would now know that an unprecedented force had been unleashed, a sovereign who had dared to challenge their authority in their very heart. Chapter 6 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.